Hey, 1 second, y'all. Forgot to turn on my. Hey, look at Selena looking all up close and personal. Keep telling y'all, this camera, man, this camera is super cool. It zooms in. If I back up, it'll zoom in. Look at that. You know what I'm saying? And then I get closer, and it indeed backs up. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Inner Storyteller. It is your humblest of hosts, Soul Expression, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. I have to admit, guys, I gotta admit to you, I gotta tell you something. Is this door? That door is open. 1 second. I know Selena's pretty, but I'm pretty too. Come on, camera. Gotta tell you guys, definitely still am extremely angry and frustrated about yesterday's show because I created this whole PowerPoint presentation to go along with the script. And because of that stupid coding on StreamYard that makes it so that when you click share and then you select the thing that you want to share your screen on, it goes to the tab. Like you're no longer looking at the StreamYard screen. It automatically goes to the tab. So unless you have, 3 and 4 monitors live all at the same time, where it doesn't have to switch anything because what you're trying to share is already on different monitors, then you don't notice because you're not on that screen anymore. And basically I was looking at my notes, my script notes, and manually, changing the slides as I went through my script. And I was not showing the presentation the entire time. So I'm not going to remove the video because, my ad-libbing and my general presentation style is I go off script a lot. So I'm not going to just remove off of the internet the things that I said in that episode that were not, necessarily on script. But I am going to repeat, so to speak, that episode. But I did add some more slides so that it's not the exact same slide deck. And I added to the script some useful information from a very relevant YouTube video, that features, what's his name's Schmattenberger. That features Mr. Schmattenberger from an after school video. And his first of all, Schmattenberger, and I hope I'm saying it right, because if I'm not, I'm sorry. It's spelled SCHMACHTENBERGER. So sorry if I get your name wrong, good brother, but he's a wealth of information, as the understatement of 7 centuries. His vocabulary alone is varied and he has a very deep vocabulary. So when he speaks, he'll use a bunch of words that you want to quickly look up real fast just so you can kind of keep up. But also very, very relevant to my work, to my philosophy and my inner storyteller work. So I added, about 4 slides worth of information, about 4 slides worth of script to my script and slide deck that, obviously I'm going to successfully share to the, I'm going to successfully share my screen today, but, and there we can see Outpaced is the name of the slide deck. 1 second, my daughter is going absolutely ballistic, and I feel like you guys can hear it. So just give me a quick sec. I'm actually going to shut my camera off for 2 seconds, but I am going to keep talking to you guys, and I'm just going to open the door, see what's going on, and come right back. So just give me a quick sec. Okay, thank you. All right, let's get the camera back on. So, outpaced. We are not advancing with our technology. Technology is indeed outpacing us in advancement. And we're going to have a very deep conversation about this very topic. And I'm very excited to get into it. Um, so, without further ado, if you are here, good people, then you are in for real conversations. Here we talk about natural law, talk about religion, talk about money, anarchy, culture, and how mankind is manipulated by evil forces that do not have our best interests at heart. Now, I say we talk about religion, we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great when it comes to religion, but we are not bashing faith systems here. We are not calling people stupid for having a religion or subscribing to a religion. Human beings must orient themselves toward belief in some way, shape, or form. We are simply examining the psychological cause and effect of the stories that we have the most faith in, the ones we have the most stake in, and how those stories shape society. And that examination, of course, runs right alongside an honest look at the current condition of humanity, the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery. And the question we have to keep coming back to is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. And if any of that makes you uneasy, makes you uncomfortable, or maybe even a little angry, be reassured that although you are 1000% encouraged to stay, you are, of course, welcome to leave, but only after you like the video. Okay? Because you don't actually have to like the content to like the video. The video is a digital thing, the content is an etheric thing. It's a thing that happens in your inner experience, whereas the video is external. So please like the video, subscribe to the channels, and let's hop into this wonderful content about how we are outpaced by the advancement of technology. Let me ask you something, dear viewer. When you think about human advancement, what do you picture? Most people say technology, a new phone, a faster processor, data center, a medical breakthrough, an AI that can hold a conversation that sounds just as natural as we do. And I'll add that picture makes a great deal of sense because we have been handed a story that says these things are us advancing, that the tool is an extension of us, and therefore, when the tool gets smarter, that reflects us getting smarter. When the tool gets faster and more efficient, that reflects us getting faster and better and more efficient. That story is false, very false. We're going to look at that today. And the consequences of living inside that false story are not small. They're civilizational and quasi-permanent. Quasi because we can reverse course and cut our losses, count our blessings, and start anew without this mass distributed technology, getting rid of it, right? But we're not going to do that. So it's quasi permanent effects, but there are other solutions besides the very masculine, very linear. Well, if we throw it all away and start anew, then we might, be able to connect to nature and be truthful again. That's very masculine, but it's very unrealistic. The technology is already here and it is already mass distributed to a large degree. So we really have to go about the work of understanding how we got here, what we didn't understand leading up to this point, and what we can practically do to get to a more aligned with truth condition for the human family. There are two kinds of advancement. There are two kinds of advancement, and they do not move at the same speed. First, we have technological advancement. That moves exponentially fast, right? The printing press arrived in the 1440s. The Industrial Revolution followed a mere 4 centuries later, 400 years later. So the printing press gave us the ability to mass print, mass distribute written material, whether it is fictional material, mythical material, or just nonfiction, and and creative material, obviously, religious material. But relatively very, very, very long time in comparison to a single human life. After that, we have the next major leap, in my opinion, of a technological advancement, which is the Industrial Revolution. Right, so that came 400 years later. But that there will never again after that point be a 400-year gap between major technological advancements. Okay, so we get the Industrial Revolution, then we get everybody using electricity, and I'm loosely using the word everybody here. I mean, in the most developed nations at the time, in around the 1850s, 1880s, very early 1900s, pretty much everybody knew the basic uses of electricity, even if, they were, only using it in very specific, uniform ways. Electricity was a thing by the early 1900s, late 1800s. And then from electricity, we get the telephone, we get the radio, television, internet, smartphone, AI, all of these things in roughly 150 years, right? From 1880 to 2020, or 1999, we get this crazy, crazy, crazy boost and acceleration. And that acceleration is real and it's not slowing down. But next to technological advancement, we have human moral development. Human advancement moves way differently. And human advancement in this presentation means advancement in spiritual alignment with truth. Okay? And our advancement in moral clarity or right action, our advancement in our actual ability to think, discern, and govern ourselves and live in genuine community with each other. That kind of advancement does not come from a software update. It comes from very slow, sometimes very difficult, often unglamorous work of examined living, reflected upon choice making, so that we can master making the right choices, right? Repeated right choice making is what we are striving for, what we are developing to be able to do more and more automatically, make the right choice, make the moral choice, right? Embodied truth, practiced knowledge that doesn't just live in the head. And these two timelines between technological advancement and human advancement are not synchronized at all. In fact, morally, we are worse off than we were in the past. Now, I'm not trying to dismiss the ills of slavery, of course. The thing about slavery is it changed forms, right? I'm also not trying to dismiss racism. But racism, slavery, these technologies of human control simply changed form, right? So we don't have the chattel slavery mixed in with it's because they're dark skinned that we can do this to these people, that we had in America. And there were other forms of slavery and other forms of you could say colorism or whatever around the whole world for most of the world's history. But there was still the overall moral score was better for the human family, the overall global human family in the past than it is now. We are less moral now. And I'm going to explain why that's my take, right? I'm not presenting that as absolute truth, but I'm going to explain why that's my take on it. So here is something very important that most people miss about technology. And the thinker, Daniel Smattenberger, puts this very precisely. Technology is not values neutral. Okay? Technology leans good or bad as far as values goes. It's not values neutral. Most people assume a tool is just a tool. A hammer can build a house or break a skull if need be, right? The hammer itself is not good or bad by laying on the table or sitting in the tool bag. But this is not always true about all tools. Tools have values built into them because tools are designed to do jobs. They have a mutual conditioning about them. The tool itself conditions the people that use the tool depending on the level of awareness, the state of consciousness of the people using them. And once enough people are using a tool, then the behavior it produces in the aggregate of that society using the tool becomes obligate. There's an obligation that arises with the behavior of the society using the tool, like the GPS, for instance. And it's obligate because you either adopt those behaviors or you lose whatever game your society is playing. A clear example of this is the plow. Okay. Before the plow, we have that right here. Before the plow, virtually every hunter-gatherer culture on Earth was animistic. Okay. If you don't know what animism is essentially the oldest religion. All right. It is where you had a spiritual essence. You had an intimate relationship with the spiritual essence behind not only your loved ones, but the earth itself, all of the animals on the earth itself, the air, and the unseen spiritual realm. You had an intimate relationship with it. We do not have that today. Okay, so everybody was animistic. Animism was the general kind of naturally occurring belief system adhered to in different forms, right? There was different textures of it, but around the world, pretty much everybody was animistic without the label animism, right? They related to the buffalo, to the river, to the forests as living spirits, deserving of respect. And then the plow arrived one day. The technology of the plow, the ox pushed or pulled plow. When the plow arrived, you really couldn't remain animistic, not in a genuine sense, right? To take an ox and yoke it and whip it all day and make it into a commodity, a product given to you by God or something that you can do with what you please. Use it to clear cut the forest for row crops. Well, that requires an entirely different intimate relationship or a lack of an intimate relationship with nature, right? Your relationship with nature is going to be completely different if you are going to be okay with domesticating an ox to pull your plow for your agriculture needs or wants or what have you, right? Man's dominion over nature is what followed. It required an entirely different story about what animals and land were for. The animals now were put here to serve us. The land now, we were put on it to dominate it, to hold dominion over it. Now, that story didn't come first. Actually, in history, the tool came first. The story followed because that story was required for the belief system of animism to be replaced with a different belief system. And the populations that adopted the tool, the plow, the agricultural quantum leap in technological advancement, the populations that adopted that tool seem to outwar the populations that didn't. You see, the plow and all of the disregard for nature that it kind of resulted in. And I'm not blaming the plow for that. Of course, we could have invented the plow and uh, done the slow, hard work to figure out how to make a sustainable, come up with sustainable means of plowing the earth and whatnot. It just would have taken maybe more time than, oh well, I'm just going to force animals that can't talk to do what I need them to do, right? So I'm not blaming the tool, but those that used the plow, the civilizations that adopted this new belief system, went away, a couple steps away from nature and a couple steps into human domination religion, and they now had surpluses of food and or supplies that the cultures that did not want anything to do with the plow, because treating the ox like that, or treating the horse, treating the whatever big animal that was going to pull the plow for you like that, was not in their wheelhouse. It just wasn't how they did things. They lost. They lost the battles. They lost the war. They did not have the surplus of food. They did not have the means to sustain the endurance, and they did not build stronger militaries than those that use the plow. And what we call human nature today is largely accumulated, is largely the accumulated result of which tools became obligate to win and which stories followed the invention and mass distribution of said tools. Then another very, very, very important technological advancement is the written word. Okay? Linearized thought. We decided to record our version of history in writing and decided to tell the story that what we write down is true. Okay. Now, some of what we write down is true. I wrote 2 books, and I think, they're largely filled with truth. There's a lot of truth in even religious texts, right? There's a lot of truth in what we write down. But the story that what we write down is true is untrue, right? That sort of blanket, almost subconscious thought is not true. And actually, the technology that gave us the ability to write our thoughts, to write our account of historical events, to write our philosophy, to write our belief systems down and give them a sense of quasi permanence, seems to have done more harm than good, and more separation from nature than integration, or advanced integration into nature, right, as a part of nature. And then, of course, we have the smartphone basically, um, with the GPS, with the, you know, we get a little testy sometimes here in this household when I talk about, like, you got to know how to get places without the phone. Like, with the phone being dead, you have to know how to get back home from at least, 15, 20 minutes away. You got to be able to find the highway and just have a general sense of direction. Our general sense of direction has plummeted, to give another understatement of the century, plummeted since the GPS, and definitely since the cell phone. Another thing you might not know is our peripheral vision. Kids, students that are in middle school right now, 2026, have much less of an ability to utilize their peripheral vision, and take in that data in real time the way that I can. And I likely have less of an ability to utilize my peripheral vision than, let's say, my grandmother, when she was my age with my level of eyesight, okay, or comparable. Social media. Social media has replaced human relationship with addictive fragmenting of sparse relationship activities, right? Relationships stripped of everything that made them valuable, right? Optimized for the parts that serve the market. And then we have, fast food. That's a technology. Fast food, uh, uh, pornography, right? That was switched for genuine intimacy. Um, Fast food was switched for real nutrition. News stations were switched for genuine journalism, genuine inquiry into what's actually happening in the world. In every case, the container, okay, the words used, the euphemisms used to describe the advancements, the container carries the label of the real thing, while delivering the part that produces the dependency on the technology. And that's not by accident. I put that is by design. And the inner storyteller is the mechanism being operated on each time that technology is designed in these ways. Now, we talked about, yesterday, Robert Axelrod and his work on game theory. Okay, Robert Axelrod spent years running game theory experiments to understand when and why human cooperation emerges. His most famous finding came from a computer tournament where hundreds of strategies competed on in a excuse me repeated scenario, competed in a repeated scenario where two players have to choose cooperation or defection without knowing what the other will do. And I saw a good picture, um, of the prisoner's dilemma that I hope I can find on Google Images real quick. Let me share this tab. And yes, here we go. Oh, this is even better. Boom. Can I make this huge or no? Is the image on here anywhere? I think I just saw it. No. Oh, no, that wasn't it. That was just the same colors. Well, where's the picture? Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Go back to Google. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me close the tab. Oh, nice. Good. Y'all didn't even see all that. Okay, so I probably can just zoom in this way. No. Man. Save. No, not save link. Jesus Christ. Cancel. I'm not even reading. Save. Where's save image? Computers used to be so much more user friendly. Okay, now I can open this and then I can, yeah, photos. Open it, please. Because it's such good. This right here, you can't, I don't think you can see. It's probably too small for you guys, but just give me a sec. Nice. It's nice and clear. So now I just got to stop screen share and then share. No, not that. Share screen. Window. Here we go. Share. And then I have to add it to the stage. Nice. That took way too long. Okay. So the prisoner's dilemma. Very, very cool stuff. So this is just, computer simulations and whatnot ran on this. Game theory is essentially mathematical. Okay. And this is just an example of one of the experiments that we're going to break down here. So what I just said is his most famous finding came from running a computer tournament where hundreds of strategies competed in repeated scenarios where two players must choose cooperation or defection without knowing what the other will do. So in this picture, we have the prisoner's dilemma, where we have confess or remain silent. Confess in blocks. Confess basically means you tell the story and you get rewarded by the police or whatever that have you in custody by you either getting a lighter sentence or you getting let out with 0 years, right? So in the first box we have both people confessed, and if both people confessed they both get 5 years, right? In the last box we have both people remain silent. They both remain silent and don't say anything, they both only get 1 year. And in these two boxes, one snitched on the other. Okay, one defected from the trust in the other. And in this scenario, where person B chose to confess, okay, this person B, this remain silent is not assigned to person B. It's just this category remain silent, and this category confess, and this category confess, and this category remain silent. So in this scenario, person B remained silent and person A confessed, right? By confess means basically snitched on person B. They got 0, person B got 20. In this scenario, person A remained silent and person B confessed, right? And so, person B confessed. And so person B cried and told on person A, and he got out with 0 years. These two scenarios, I get let out individually, but the other guy gets 20 years, although we both participated in whatever that got us locked up or got us in custody, is the worst scenario for one of the participants. This scenario where they both confess is the worst if both get the same sentence. And this is the overall best scenario, at least in this computer simulation. Now, of course, I don't believe in prisons in general, so I'm not saying this is the best scenario to be put in a cage like you some sort of, subhuman scum. But nonetheless, this is the best scenario for both parties involved. Now, let me share my presentation again. Boom, and then I have to add it to the stage. Boom, there we go. All right. Now, the consistent winner of these strategies competing with each other in the computer system The most consistent winner was the one that implemented the simplest strategy, which is first you have to cooperate. Okay. Oh, I think we're on the next slide, by the way. Yes. First, you cooperate. Cooperation first. Then you mirror whatever the other player does. So you have to be willing to forgive and return to cooperation after you defect. You have to be willing to defect when the time comes. All of these things, you're cooperating conditionally, right? And you're cooperating first. Okay. And what Axelrod found is that cooperation is not idealistic. It's not coming from altruism. It's the dominant rational strategy. Okay, but not, I mean, but it's only the dominant rational strategy under specific conditions. And those conditions are repeated interaction, mutual accountability, and consequences felt by the person making the decision. So when you know the weight of the consequences coming from your choices, when you have repeated interaction with the same person or group, and where there's mutual accountability for the actions of you and the person or group that you're having repeated interactions with. Under those conditions, cooperation is the dominant rational strategy. All right. Now, let's look at the connection. Okay. Connection. Industrial capitalism, as an ideological technology, systematically removes all three conditions. It replaces repeated interaction or repeated relationship with one-time transaction. Okay, everything in our relationships has become transactional. So one-time transactions. You go to the grocery store. You don't know the clerk. You don't know the. I say clerk. Excuse me. You don't know the. Are they clerks in the school store? Are they clerks in the store? Cashier. There we go. You don't know anything about anybody. You just go to the store, you do your transaction, you go home. Right? It removes mutual accountability by making the scale anonymous. It delays consequence through debt and credit systems that insulate the decision maker from the outcome of their decisions. Now, not if you default on a debt, but as far as everything that's behind that paperwork, you have no idea what's going on, how your choices impact those around you. You just know what you got, what you need for yourself, and you move on without even thinking about it. Right? The game, industrial capitalism, gets redesigned so that the moral development that the game would naturally produce never really arrives. Brian Skirms takes this a little bit further with the stag hunt. Okay? Two hunters can either cooperate to catch a stag, which is a deer, which may feed the whole community, feeds a whole lot of people for days and maybe weeks. Okay? Or each can catch a rabbit alone. The stag requires trust in the partner, okay, in the one participating in the game with you. Hunting that stag together requires trust. The rabbit guarantees a smaller but certain individual return. Brian Skirms argues that human moral development is essentially the story of learning to choose the stag more consistently, developing the trust and coordination required to pursue the larger collective good. That's the story, he argues, of moral development in human beings. Now, money systems, as currently structured, especially in the modern world, rewards rabbit hunting behavior, right? And they dress that up as what is freedom. because being bound to trust to the ruling class, to the order giver class, feels like slavery. Having to trust people feels like slavery to them. And so they want that to feel like slavery to us, and they reward rabbit hunting behavior. The collective, you know, goes uncaught. The collective result that we want remains hidden, and the community goes unfed when the stag is never hunted. Boom. The collective stag is never hunted. Now, Schmattenberger identifies something that he calls the multipolar trap. Here's how that works. Very, very good stuff from the YouTube video that I watched earlier today. First of all, one actor does something that provides near-term advantage, even if it's destructive. And the other actors, face a choice. If they don't do the same thing that the first actor does, okay, which provides near-term advantage, they might not survive. They might not win the game. So even if they don't want to, because of how destructive it is or how disrespectful to animals it is or whatever, if they don't want to, they may have to participate and do the destructive thing to stay alive, or to stay at least within a livable condition. Now, nobody wants the outcome, but nobody can stop it. Because if anyone stops, it's so much worse for them in the short term, right? And they can't guarantee that the others, the other side, those doing the thing that provides the near-term advantage, okay, but happens to be very destructive, they can't guarantee the other side will stop if they stop. And since it's going to be really bad for them for, a guaranteed a little amount of time, they become apathetic. And in the video, he used climate change as his example. He said, literally, nobody's strategic example is, climate change that hurts us. Nobody wants this. Every major government acknowledges it as a crisis. There's $1 trillion a year in climate-related funding, regardless of how that funding is allocated. I'm just saying that's a big number, big number. You couldn't even really imagine $1 trillion. It's not even. Trust me, you couldn't even imagine it. Okay, having it. There are international agreements. There are supercomputers and coalitions with the sole purpose of researching and trying to do something about climate change. Okay, and whether we are believing that climate change is, human caused or not, is not relevant to this point that I'm making. Every single year, humanity uses more and more of the things that are claimed to be contributing badly to climate change. Okay, things that affect the soil, things that affect the air, things that affect what they call the ozone layer, the atmosphere, all of these things, right? The same dynamic is present in arms races, in pharmaceutical development, in the extraction economy, in AI development right now, where every major power is racing for dominance as fast as possible in the AI world, because whoever gets there first has the first mover advantage, right? If you snitch first, you may get out with 0 years. And In a race, you don't slow down to make sure you're doing things safely, morally, sustainably, or in a way that is good for the collective. So nobody wants what the world, nobody wants the world that this produces, but nobody feels that they can stop the behaviors that produce it. Now, this, of course, connects directly to the inner storyteller. Okay. This multipolar trap described by Schmattenberger, Daniel Schmattenberger, is not a failure of intelligence. Most of our extremely prevalent counterproductive behaviors are from just a failure of intelligence evolving the wrong way. Okay. The people running these systems are not stupid. It's the logical output of a specific story running at a civilizational level. And that story is, quote, more power is always good for the one who holds it. Again, that story is more power is always good for the one who holds it. That story doesn't require much coordination. It doesn't require a secret meeting of a cabal to be running. It requires only that if it is sustained, it stays unexamined at its base. And it becomes the foundation for all of the decisions that we make in life, especially all of the decisions that are made by the powerful, by the so-called powerful, the so-called elite, right? And it has to stay unexamined because the collective inner storyteller, the inner storyteller of the human family, has been shaped through religion, as I define it in my work, not just the major institutionalized religions, but also the religion of monetary value, the religion of government, the religion of public school, the religion of fast food, the religion of pharmaceuticals, the religion of all things that tie you back from truth, including the major institutionalized religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, all of them. Okay. The collective inner storyteller has been shaped through religion, through institutional repetition, and through the tools that become obligate for us to use in order to either survive or not lose. And we protect that story, that more power is always good for the one who holds it. We protect that story, especially those who have no power. Protect that story. Now let's talk about, yes, let's talk about J. Mackenzie Alexander. Okay. He identified a structural problem. His work on the evolution of morality shows that moral norms emerge from humans playing repeated games with each other across generations. The structures, hold on, did I go too far? Let me make sure I didn't go too far. Fill the gap. Religions, blah, 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 game theory. Oh, I think I'm still here for right now. My bad. Science tells you what is. Nothing tells you what ought. Yeah, we're still here. Pardon me. J. Mackenzie Alexander identified that morality or moral norms, pardon me, emerge from humans playing repeated games with each other across generations. The structures that survive are the ones that produce stable cooperation. But when technology, ideology, or economic structure shifts before the moral development required to steward it has caught up, the population becomes vulnerable to becoming evil. by way of obedience to evil people that do understand these relationships. Then we have the researcher Dennis Krebs. Krebs makes this even more precise. His finding is that, or his findings are that humans inherit biological dispositions toward the first three stages of moral development, which are basic reciprocity, rule following, and social conformity. But there are higher stages of moral development that we have to work to develop within ourselves: principles, universal ethics, genuine self governance, alignment with natural law, self denial, which just means not giving into temptation, right? Those have to be developed over time through reflection, honesty, hard work, self esteem development, and um, just getting better at making the right choice every time. They're not inherited. And this is where another key point made in that video with Daniel Schmattenberger adds to the picture. There is a distinction between what science can describe, which is what is, and what ought to guide human decisions. So we have what is and what ought. Science describes what is and how. Science does not and cannot describe what ought, not in a subjective sense. It can't do it. It just doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. Science can study the physical world, tell you exactly how it works in all of its parts. It cannot tell you what you should do, right? It could tell you what you should do for safety. It could tell you what you should do, to not uh, to not make something that is poisonous and drink it. But it cannot tell you what you should do morally. That gap, the is ought gap, very, very, very old ethical conversation, is ought. Okay. That gap used to be filled by religion, traditions, and the accumulated wisdom of elders who had been deliberately cultivated over a lifetime to hold that kind of knowledge. In modernity, in modern times, that gap was largely emptied, right? Religion, the best parts of it, were dismissed, tradition discarded, elders disrespected, because the world was changing faster than their knowledge, could remain relevant. Now their knowledge is relevant, but we don't have any goals. We're not striving to any goals. Now into that gap stepped the physical manifestation of game theory. The only thing left that functions as an ought. Game theory kind of pushes us to the belief that the right choice is the choice that doesn't lose. It's not the choice that's better for everyone. It's the choice that doesn't lose. Okay? We say things like, well, if he doesn't get caught, then he was right. Right? These are we say things like that all the time about various wrong behaviors, mind you. The right technology to build is the one that wins the race with the most ease. The right strategy is the one that beats the other player without creating openings for us to get beat first. That is what is currently guiding pretty much all major technological development and all major geopolitical strategy and politics and policy, and the finite game applied to an infinite reality. James Carse wrote a small and important book called Finite and Infinite Games. A finite game ends when someone wins. If you ever played chess, then or checkers even, you play. Eventually, you capture, not capture, pardon me, but you put the king in checkmate of your opponent. You win, and the game is over. Right? Um, your opponent runs out of time. You win, and the game is over. Right? So that's a finite game. An infinite game is played to keep playing. An infinite game, the goal is not to win the game. The goal is to improve the quality and continuity of the game itself, right? To improve what about the game feels good and lights your fire. To improve what about the game brings a holistic improvement to the society playing the game, or to the group of people playing the game if it's a smaller game. Okay? So that's the difference between a finite game and an infinite game. An infinite game, um, at the largest scale, is just called life. But unfortunately, in modern times, and I mean this for the whole world, but I definitely mean this for Americans, we are running finite game logic in the game of life, in the infinite game of life. And we are wondering why everything feels so wrong, why everything feels like it's ending. And the inner storyteller is a philosophy that I am bringing to the world that aims to switch our mindset from trying to win a finite version of the game of life, to get the girl, to get the possessions, and to have the jealousy and envy of everybody else and say, I won, game over, to do away with that and to reset the mind into the logic for an infinite game in the game of life, right? The inner storyteller work is infinite game work, where you're not trying to beat the system, you're not trying to beat the other players, you are trying to change what game people think they are playing. So, oh, here we go. So, now let's look at what we have produced. Well, as technology has outpaced our moral development, we've arrived at where we are today. Question: how many religions are there? How many religions are there? Oh, this slide is out of order. There we go. um, of the largest religions, how many variations are there? How many denominations? Right? There are thousands. Take all the major religions. There are thousands of denominations, all pointing to the same, we'll call it creator. Not going to say all pointing to the same God to avoid my words being taken completely wrongly, right? But all pointing to the same reasons why we are here and the same ought, right? Now they disagree on what we ought to do individually, but the same, you know, creator is being pointed to in thousands of denominations that think that they have it right and the rest of the denominations are wrong. Fragmenting the same spiritual impulse to understand why and how we are here into competing factions that war with each other, often bloody war, over small differences, while the foundational questions largely go unexamined due to us spending time in the fights. Same thing with the economic game, right? How many economic systems are there? Now, there's much less economic systems as far as big, huge ones. You could really kind of bring them down to three, where there's barter, capitalism, and socialism. It's kind of the three versions of economic systems. But within capitalism, how many subcategories? How many different things that overlap with socialism and overlap with barter are within the bubble of capitalism? In socialism, how many subcategories are there? How much overlap? There are at least hundreds of ideological variations, all attempting to solve the same small set of human problems. Problems like hunger, shelter, safety, and love, right? Some sub problems like efficiency and harmony. That fragmentation creates the illusion of genuine choice when the underlying questions regarding whether or not economics are even required to bring our ideas to life, underlying questions are identical and the underlying problems remain unsolved. Problems I just named. Now, of course, I'm going to say that's not a coincidence. It's by design, in my opinion. Okay, fragmentation in this way is a technology, and it is a thought-based technology, a worldview technology that is given to the public, and it serves the story that more power is always good for the one who holds it, one who wields it. If you get people through your power to fight over which version of the solution is the correct version of the solution, then they'll likely never examine whether or not the framework producing all of the versions of the solution to the one problem is itself the real problem. They'll never even look at that. It won't even come to mind. Our lack of genuine community is not the effect of our lack of information. People know what the problems are. People know the problems are there. The awareness exists, and the information is more available now than it ever has been. Our lack of genuine community is, in fact, an effect of the stories we tell ourselves. Good people. Stories about who belongs with us and who doesn't, about what connection looks like and which forms of connection are safe to pursue and tolerable. We have been conditioned to associate connection with various forms of isolation and separatism. Okay? Our conditioning in school and our conditioning at work, as well as our conditioning as consumers, the advertisements that we consume every day, all of these things condition us into associating isolation and separatism with connection, right? We have our religious identity, and we think that that connects us to God, when in reality, that separate, we were already connected to God before we knew in words what a God is. We were already connected to God. And religious identity simply separates you from other people. Political identity does the same thing. National, racial, all of these identities, right? Fashion identity. All of them are technologies. Okay, they're technologies of a thought form, technologies that are formed for maintaining the experience of separation in beings whose fundamental nature is to be connected. And that connection is non-local, as we talked about in our first deep dive into the quantum connection to the inner storyteller framework. We are non-locally connected. We are telepathically and emotionally connected with everybody at all times. Ah, our lack of community is not an information problem. It's a story problem. Okay. Now we have to look at what the way through actually is, because the way through is not a better economic system or a better way to go about um, a more efficient way to make the technology available to everybody. Right? It's not more tech. It's not. It's not a better form of capitalism or communism or any of the isms for economics. Uh, it's not a more refined ideological separatist religion, and it's not a new religion. What we have to really understand is the only two ingredients necessary for an idea to come out of thought form and be manifest in the world. The only two ingredients are knowledge and work. That's it. We have to have the know-how as well as the grammar, and we have to do the work, do the reflection, do the hypothesis, do the testing, build the thing. Not money. That's not one of the necessary ingredients. There's no need for money in order for us to do a project. Not permission from a group of people that we call authority. Not the right economic structure. Just knowledge and work. That's it. And when I say knowledge, I mean knowledge that is lived, knowledge that is holistically gained, not mentally held and recited with grammatical precision. You know, that's fine. You need that as a part of the learning process. But knowledge that is practiced, right? Practiced in the body until it becomes something you are rather than just something you think you know. And another point that Daniel Schmattenberger, points to, what was lost when the written word replaced embodied transmission of knowledge is this: the elder who had something meaningful to share usually didn't write it in a decontextualized linear document. The elder sat with the young people. He made sure that they really understood what he or she was trying to get across holistically, right? In connection with where they are in life, with where the trees and the dirt and the animals are in right now in time, and where the elders and the adults and the children's lives are. Where their society was, right? He connected whatever the topic was, he or she, to the holistic view of the life that they were living. He made sure that they really got it. He connected it to everything else. He taught in ways that were unique to each person. Okay, something that you can't even really afford to do as a teacher today with 30 children in your classroom. And love. Love was transmitted alongside the grammar and the know-how. The relationship was the container the knowledge lived inside of. Now, this is not some romantic story about the past to say that, tribal living was just so much better or anything. I am making a case about being more connected to nature, but I'm not saying that we should be hunter-gatherers right now. I'm not saying that. Okay. This is not a romanticization of the past. It's a precise description of how moral development actually happens. You do not master moral development and then apply it. That's out of order. You master you master knowledge by being exposed to it and then practicing it until it is no longer something that you merely think you know, till it is something that is a part of who you are, right? That is so embodying knowledge is a part of the learning process when the knowledge is gained holistically. So the way through is we have to holistically gain the knowledge of where we are and where we want to be. We have to cut our losses, count our blessings, and start from a place that honestly acknowledges our current standing, our current level of what we deserve, what we have earned, both individually and collectively, as far as our technological advancement and how well suited we actually are to steward these very advanced technologies in a way that is a net positive for the collective of Earth, okay, the human family, and the ground, and the animals, and the air, and the oil, and the whatever else you want to call Earth, water, okay? We have to acknowledge our actual standing, our current standing. And we have to acknowledge how far behind our moral development is relative, to the tools that we hold and wield. We have to be willing to do things with our hands again. We have to teach with example rather than just platform teachers to teach for us. We have to stop acting as if keeping up with the desired pace of the order giver class is what actually feeds and houses people. It's not, and it never has been. What feeds and houses people is genuine human cooperation. And genuine human cooperation requires the moral development that cooperation, practiced consistently across repeated interactions with real accountability or real consequences for all that participate, naturally produces when we let it. Technology can show us where we need to go. And that's not a small gift. Okay? The tools, when looked at honestly, reveal the gap rather than filling it. The question is whether we are willing to look at the gap and do the actual work of closing it from the inside rather than buying another tool and calling that progress. And as you can see, the story we have been living says that we are the advancement and the technology is an extension of us. That story is not true. The truer story is that the technology is ahead of us and we have a lot of work to do. Not shameful work, not defeating work. The most important work there is the work of becoming. So the question I'll leave you with is, what story are you going to live? That, good people, is the presentation that I was supposed to show yesterday. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot from it. I definitely delivered the information in a more smooth kind of way, so I'm happy about that. And I want to thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like the video, subscribe to the channels. Please, allow some time to write a comment about what you saw, what you maybe agree with, disagree with. And, today is Thursday, so I'll see you tomorrow, Friday, for the next one. Although tomorrow I'll probably go live earlier in the day because later in the day we have some performing to do. Again, I will be at the Here, I'll share this real quick. Um, Go to my profile for Instagram. And oh, I thought I just posted a. Oh yeah, I did. Okay, here we go. That you are a champion. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, here we go. So, Unity Nights. Unity Night. The community jam. Okay, Ufulu Child, that's us. That's me and the wife. You know, with the heart behind the Thrive Zone and the inner storyteller. Hey, Tensi, that's the wife, and Soul Expression are a husband and wife duo who turned their family's healing journey into a mission empowering truth and freedom seeking families to live a healthy lifestyle free from the bondage of chronic illness, imbalance, and fear while unlocking next level self love through events, coaching, and community. Tensi and Soul bring artistry as hip hop soul artists as well as wellness. They put freedom before popularity and invite you to do the same, to live authentically, to love unconditionally, and to model holistic freedom for your children. Tomorrow, Friday, May 29th, 6:30 to 9:30 at Dan's Versity. Dan's Versity. 7531 Burnett Road, Austin, Texas, 78757. I hope to see all 0 people who watched this live when it was live there with me. And of course, if you're in Austin, I hope to see you there. Much love, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.